Yo, so it's already been over a month since the iPhone 16 Pro Max dropped, and I switched to it from the S24 Ultra. I thought it was about time to compare these phones with my real life usage, but this is going to be an interesting one because I didn't even make a 1-month review of this phone because the truth is, the experience really hasn't changed from when I first unboxed it because it's so similar to the 15 Pro. That aside, I'm going to show you guys my setup with these two phones and the good and the bad of each so you know how to best spend your money if you're looking to upgrade. So here we have the black titanium S24 Ultra and black titanium iPhone 16 Pro Max. The two finishes are almost identical, but in hand the S24's is a bit smoother. I am currently using the iPhone caseless and I'd say it's a little less slippery in hand than the S24, but as much as I don't love the sharp edges, they actually make it feel less likely to slip. I went with the iPhone 16 Pro Max this year because of how much I liked the S24's 6.8-inch display. The iPhone this year actually got a 6.9-inch display, just ever so slightly larger, and I love it. This is the biggest iPhone display we've had, and this is the one thing that's been drastically different from my old 15 Pro, though compared to the 15 Pro Max, it's only about a 0.2-inch difference. Looking up close at both displays, the S24's bezels to me look ever so slightly slimmer, but it's not something I've been able to notice. The difference that does come when looking at these two screens is the corners. The iPhone's rounded design is one I still prefer to this day. I just think it looks nicer than the boxier S24 design, but this really is just personal preference. Now, the dynamic island takes up more of the iPhone's display compared to the S24's punch hole, and so if you watch full screen videos, the S24 is no doubt better for that. In terms of display quality, both honestly look great, and it's really hard for me to say which looks better. It's definitely not an area I think the decision should come down to. The iPhone has a 2568 by 1420 pixel resolution at a 460 ppi density. The S24 has a 3120 by 1440 resolution at about a 505 ppi density. So objectively, the S24 is higher resolution and more pixel dense, but with the daily use I've had with both, there's no real noticeable difference here. So to actually log into both of these phones, you can use facial recognition, and on the iPhone, that's still the only option. When I was watching the event, for a split second, I thought the camera control button was actually Apple bringing back Touch ID, but nope, I was wrong. It's a camera button that frankly I haven't used much, but we'll get to that in a minute. The S24 has an under the screen fingerprint reader, and I think it's crazy the iPhone hasn't copied it yet because it's really nice. There's times where Face ID just doesn't work, and it'd be nice to use the fingerprint reader quickly rather than typing in my passcode. Now, the hardware of both phones are great, but the software is where a lot of the day-to-day differences come. I'm honestly a fan of both Android and iOS, but the one thing that I miss from Android right now is the deeper customization that you get. Apple tried to do some things with iOS 18, like change the color theme of your phone and place the icons anywhere on the screen, which is funny that it's taken this long, but it's nice. That said though, it's still a lot more limited in customization. With the S24, I was able to download a launcher from the Play Store and completely change how my home screen looked and behaved. Now, I will say the things I like about iOS are the small integrations with Mac, like copy paste going across and AirDrop. There was also a couple of apps I was really excited to start using on my phone, like AMI and Arc Search. Being on Android for so long, I tried using cross-platform apps like Simple Note or Superlist, but I've found that it's really hard to get away from just using the stock apps, and something like Apple Notes or Apple Reminders are just so simple, and having those sync across my Apple devices is nice. Speaking of apps and software, as some of you might know, I work as a software engineer and spend a lot of my time outside of work making YouTube videos and building my own web apps. Though if you've never learned to code, it can be pretty overwhelming to start, but that's where today's sponsor Brilliant comes in. Brilliant is an online learning platform where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI. Brilliant helps you build critical thinking skills through problem solving, not memorizing. Learning a little bit each day is one of the most effective ways to acquire new skills, and Brilliant makes it easy to build real knowledge in just a few minutes each day. Brilliant has a growing number of programming courses that are a great way to build foundations and learn real-world applications. You can take a class like Thinking in Code that introduces you to computational problem solving, or venture into Applied Python where you can learn how to analyze and generate text with code. To try everything Brilliant has to offer free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/colcakamus or go to the first link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. I also thought that in this video we'd be able to compare some of the AI features. Apple Intelligence is still not out at the time I'm scripting this video, but this is only the first wave of features, none of which are that interesting to be honest. But it seems like this phone won't really be complete until 6 months in or even longer. I'm not really sure when the very last wave of features is even coming. To be honest though, in all the time I used the S24, I didn't touch a single AI feature outside of my review, so I feel like besides the Siri improvements, once we actually get them, it'll be a similar story on the Apple side. To be fair, a lot of Samsung's AI features were in the camera app, and I don't really take that many pictures with my phone, so I don't ever get to use these. Circle to search was also an interesting feature and probably one of the only other useful ones, but even then I can't tell you a single time I used it organically. Now, the two cameras are both really good and capable of producing some great images and video. I won't go super deep on the comparisons because I'm not really qualified. I don't shoot too much of anything between these two, but it's still worth mentioning. The iPhone's camera upgrades this year are pretty minimal, and I still hold the opinion that for video, the iPhone wins by far, but with photo, it's a lot closer. The iPhone has a 5x telephoto that's a 12 megapixel sensor, and this is now the same even on the smaller phone, which is nice to see. There's also a 48 megapixel ultra wide and 48 megapixel fusion main sensor. For the S24, it has a 12 megapixel ultra wide lens, a 200 megapixel wide lens, two 3x telephotos at 12 megapixels, and a 5x 50 megapixel camera. When shooting photos, I find that the iPhone shots come out a little more consistently, but a lot of what you get is going to come down to your lighting and how good you are at composing a shot. These days, phone cameras on both sides are so good that you can get great shots with either. If you're on the S24, there's a couple settings I recommend just to make the shooting experience a little better, and these are enabling the grid for easier composition, and turning on swipe shutter for burst to shoot multiple photos at once if needed. If you don't like Samsung's post-processing, you can play with the intelligent optimization settings, and if I ever plan to edit a photo later, I'll always shoot in RAW, which is great on both phones. For the S24, I also recommend downloading the Camera Assistant app, which gives you access to additional settings like added zoom shortcuts. In terms of iPhone settings, I also recommend enabling the grid, and for video, potentially turning off HDR video, because the times where I've wanted to bring video from the iPhone into Resolve, it overexposes it like crazy, and this just makes it look more natural and easier to edit. Now, with camera control, shooting with the iPhone can be a cooler experience. By default, pressing the camera control button will launch the camera app, and double pressing it brings up the menu of options that you can scroll through. It's a cool feature to have, I guess, but honestly, a lot of these things are literally faster just to tap the screen for. Zooming can be easily done by pinching the screen. You can tap to change whichever camera you're using. Adjusting the brightness is also as simple as tapping and sliding your finger. So for me, this has really just become a glorified shutter button. The only time I find this useful is maybe if I'm recording a video and want to change the zoom without tapping the screen, but otherwise it's not all that useful of a feature. This was really the main difference from the 15 Pro, and it's not even something I use a month later. So onto battery life, both phones are honestly really solid. I haven't done any scientific tests, but both phones can easily last me multiple days, though I'm not someone who uses my phone a ton. I average like 3 hours of screen time each day, which is mostly just YouTube playing while I'm driving or at the gym. This year, the iPhone got a decent bump, which gives 4 more hours of video playback from the 15 Pro Max. The S24 was always solid for me, but the one weird thing is once you dip below 20%, the phone might as well be dead, because at that point it starts to tank and is easily dead within half an hour. So after daily driving the iPhone 16 Pro Max over the last month, I felt I'd used the phone enough to compare it to the experience I had with the S24 Ultra. Honestly, both of these are great phones, and I think which you should go for really depends on the OS you prefer. For the time being, I'm gonna gonna stick with the iPhone just because I work on a Mac and things like copy paste are just nicer. I also want to be trying out Apple Intelligence features as they come. Hopefully by the time the 6-month review rolls around, we'll have actually had a good amount of them, but we'll have to wait and see. I'll also be checking out the S25 when it drops, so make sure you're subscribed to see that. If you enjoyed this video, you should watch this one next, where I go over some of my favorite Amazon tech purchases recently that I think are worth the money. Thanks for watching, and take care.